All right, everybody, if we could migrate towards a seat. I'd like to welcome everyone to NRDZCOM4, our Nerds Community Open Meeting. This is the fourth one we've had. It's amazing that it's been four at this point. So to introduce myself, I'm Chris Anderson. I am with the NTIA Institute for Telecommunication Sciences. I can't even get it right. Out in Boulder, Colorado. I'd like to welcome everybody formally to NRDZCOM4. We've got an excellent workshop event. We've got a very full day of a lot of interesting talks, a lot of people with some great information to share, hoping to spur a lot of interesting discussion, in particular thinking towards the National Spectrum Strategy and the role that nerds can play in the National Spectrum Strategy. And we're really excited to kind of delve into these discussion of our collective research efforts. One thing that I will say, as I mentioned, the schedule is very full. So myself and the folks that are kind of helping to moderate the various sessions are going to really try to keep people on time. Because again, we've got a lot of people a lot of talks, a lot of people that have a lot of great stuff to share, and we're really going to try to stick to our schedule as best as we can. So some key theme ideas to be thinking about for NRDZCOM4 here as we're talking about this. Really the first one is explore ongoing research and development efforts that a lot of you are doing in this space that are going to be valuable for the eventual creation of the nerds. Looking, as I mentioned, at the National Spectrum Strategy and key ideas that are, or key features of the National Spectrum Strategy that are related to the ongoing work of the nerds and the nerds community, and exploring some key ideas of field experiments. So I think as everybody is aware, the NERDS program is going to be starting up some field experiments and some field trials here in the very near future, and thinking towards how those could be used to build confidence in the nerds, particularly among disparate communities that have different spectrum needs and requirements. So the scientific community, the research and academic community, obviously government, DoD, and commercial folks. So a real quick overview of the schedule. So we've got a SciNerds program update, a very brief one from John Chapin. I've got a few minutes here for Maria Zheleva to make an announcement, call for participation for a NERDS workshop that's being held at the Green Bank Observatory. We've got the morning session here is going to be some lightning talks, some research updates from several SciNerds performers. We have a coffee break scheduled at 10:50. Following the coffee break, we've got another set of lightning talks from SciNerds performers. And then right before lunch, we've got a couple of folks from the NTIA Office of Spectrum Management coming to talk about the National Spectrum Strategy and one of the interesting band studies that's happening as part of the National Spectrum Strategy. After lunch, we've got Austin Bonner from the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy giving just sort of a brief talk about opportunities in the spectrum sharing world, followed by our panel. This is a joint panel between DySPAN and Spectrum Week and NRDZCOM, looking at accelerating spectrum progress through experimentation, as sort of kicking off kind of the afternoon discussion, which is going to be focused around field experiments, experimental trials, experimental test sites, and kind of exploring those ideas. So we've got a session on field experiments, followed by a panel. We've got the final panel of the day, lessons learned from current test beds. So some folks that have been operating test beds for a while, what are the things that they've learned in the process of running that test bed? And wrapping up the day with a bit of a fireside chat, again, thinking about testing and experimentation. So that's the overview for the day, and I will hand it over to John for the program update.
Can you bring my slides up?
I can. Oh, oops, that's my slides. Here we go. Yep.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. Thrilled that we are here at NRDZCOM4, 6 months to the day after NRDZCOM3, so pretty accurate there. And just going to give you a very brief intro for those who are new to the program, who are joining us today, and then just a very brief update. Really the important stuff is to get into your talks about what you're doing. So the goal of the program is to advance the use of dynamic spectrum sharing to help the nation and the world move from a world where everybody is grabbing their own piece of the spectrum pie and holding on to it, to a world in which we are passing the access to the spectrum back and forth according to how needs are changing, according to how propagation conditions are changing, and so on. The activity that the program is pursuing is field trials of a type of spectrum sharing that we call radiodynamic zones. There is an area or a volume which has a boundary. And one thing you might do for dynamic spectrum sharing is to manage the interference crossing across that boundary. So you might be dynamically creating quiet time for a radio telescope to do observations that it would otherwise have interference from. Another thing you could do, we call the dynamic transmission function, is the inverse. You're managing interference crossing out across the boundary. In this case, you might say be running a wireless test facility and you want to run a new piece of equipment or a new way of managing spectrum, and you want to make sure that you're doing that without causing interference to others outside the facility. So lots of different places you could use radiodynamic zones. Over the course of investment in this program, our vision is that we will enhance spectrum access for multiple different facilities and applications, and we'll do that by creating several radiodynamic zones at different places in the United States. Over the longer term, we have this vision that's sort of a separate outcome from the program, which is we'd like to work towards creating a national experimental facility, a place where you can go to more easily than you can today test new ways of using the spectrum, new equipment, new spectrum management, and so on, and thereby accelerate the nation's innovation on all of our spectrum challenges. Supporting that potential national experimental facility, NEFC, would be a singular high capability radiodynamic zone called the National Radiodynamic Zone, of which there would be one. That longer term vision towards NEFC is not fully funded in our current program. We're simply laying the groundwork to potentially move in that direction over a decade period. This program got started in FY20. From 20 to 23, we invested around $25 million. All of these awards are visible on the NSF website if anyone cares to search on the title NERDS. So we started with those initial investigations, some of which have led to some pretty significant outcomes. In FY22, we had a solicitation that invested in a bunch of different studies of solutions, ways that you can implement a radiodynamic zone, and site studies. Where might we do these field trials and field experiments? In 23, we issued a set of supplements for studying the adoption of dynamic spectrum sharing from non-technical perspectives, looking at it from social, behavioral, and economic lenses. This year, we are planning a $10.5 million award. We're calling this EEL Phase 2. I'll tell you what that means on the next slide. This is the kickoff of the field experiment campaigns meant to cover many of the diverse systems and solutions and sites that have been previously studied, with a potential growth of that award over time to a total of $20 million, assuming there is both budget and the need for additional field experiments. The EEL stands for Engineering and Execution Lead. So this is a type of a role that is not common in other NSF's programs. But again, our goal is to actually advance the use of dynamic spectrum sharing, and we felt that that requires being out in the field for these extended field experiments, and the stuff has to really work. And that takes really professional system and software engineering, professional project management, really good work at interfacing to facilities, dealing with environmental regulations, and all of these other kinds of things that are not normally found in academic research teams. So we created this role called the EEL, and this award we're doing this year is the Phase 2 of the Engineering and Execution Lead. You'll hear me call it EEL2 for short. And they have the responsibility to be the leader for the field trials from a scientific, operational, spectrum regulatory, and stakeholder engagement perspective, and also do the work to support the broader adoption of these solutions over time. So those proposals came in last week, and we're now in the merit review process for that. Last topic I want to get to is the alignment with the National Spectrum Strategy. Those of you who were here at NRDZCOM4 or online, I guess it was virtual, We had that on November 16th, and the spectrum strategy had just come out on November 13th. And it threw a bit of a monkey wrench in our plans. Some of the things that it called for overlap substantially with the plans we had in this program. That actually, we had to work interagency with a bunch of other agencies to figure out what the spectrum strategy actually meant or how that would be implemented. And that led to about a 3-month delay in getting going with EEL2. So certainly the EEL performers suffered through that delay. We're all going to be, just slightly behind the previous schedules that you'd seen for the program, but not too bad. In the end, it's worked out. I'm going to use the next couple of slides to just highlight some of the ways in which we're aligned with the spectrum strategy, and then there's going to be more discussion about that through the day. But at the highest level, our program is focused on dynamic spectrum sharing, and we are advancing something which was identified as a key goal in the National Spectrum Strategy throughout the dynamic spectrum sharing is talked about. We also are developing technology that, at least in our view, is essential for creating the national DSS testbed that's called for in the strategy, and for creating the spectrum sandboxes, which is a really interesting thing that's talked about there as a way of accelerating innovation. The place where we had a challenge is that our vision, our long-term vision of a national experimental facility strongly overlaps with the role that's envisioned in the strategy for something called the DSS testbed, the national DSS testbed. But the strategy calls for that to occur in 18 months. And as you heard me say, that's a decade-long vision for us. So there's a big significant mismatch. So how did we work through that? The implementation plan was published in March. And if you read it, it's easily available on the web. I've got some of the text from it on the left-hand side and then some comments in blue on the right-hand side. So one thing that was defined in the implementation plan that was left unspecified in the strategy is that this national DSS testbed will be a federated network of sites. It's not going to be a singular site somewhere that plays that role. So that creates the possibility that a NEFC that we create through the NSF process becomes one of the sites in this federated network. There is a requirement stated in the implementation plan that the DSS testbed will support academic experimentation, and that's good. That creates a slot for us to play, and it creates a potential resource for the academic community going forward. It states that the requirements process for defining gaps and defining investment options will be done in consultation with industry and academia. Now, the process for that engagement hasn't been defined yet. We have proposed internal to the government that there be a multi-stakeholder group that does that function. While we don't know yet what it will be done, we did in the EEL2 process, we put in tasking for participation in that group if it is stood up. So that will be a vector for this community to have a voice directly in the definition of what's going to happen in the DSS testbed. And now my last slide. The other thing about this being a federated network is any such network, any such federation needs sort of a hub, some place that it comes together that defines the common standards and so on. That is the role that NTIA is assigned in the implementation plan. NTIA then has the role to define standards for data and metadata formats and the APIs and so on. So we definitely want the academic R&D community to be involved in helping to set those basic standards. Even if we don't have a dedicated, focused academic R&D testbed in the initial network, we want the technical standards to be comfortable to grow in that direction and all the processes. So the tasking for the EEL2 includes providing technical input to this design. Again, a way for the whole community to get involved in that. And finally, we did suggest, and they accepted, that there needs to be something within the first 18 months that's a Pathfinder experiment that sort of shakes out all of those new technical standards and processes and so on. And so we offered that the planned FY25 field experiment, the first field experiment that we've scheduled for SciNerds, would be the Pathfinder experiment. So there will be additional work in that context for perhaps sharing experimental plans in standard technical formats with the NTIA, perhaps sharing results with them, going back and forth. Whatever that is defined to be that will help different test beds and different experiments be part of this federated national network, we're going to work through that. And that, again, will be a chance for the academic R&D community to have a seat at the table right from the beginning and make sure that what happens in this national test bed is something that maybe will end up being useful at other sites, not just NSF-funded ones. Maybe this will help R&D folks get better access to other sites sponsored by other agencies. So that's all I wanted to share. That's our update. Thanks for your attention, and I'm really looking forward to learning what's up with everybody's projects. Thank you.
Okay, next up, before we get into the lightning talks, is Maria Zheleva from the University of Albany to give a quick overview of a NERDS workshop that she is leading the organization of. There you are.
All right, good morning, everyone. So you've probably seen me 2D on a screen, co-leading Lean Coffee table events with Chris. It is great to see you all in person. It's my first time in person here. So I just wanted to tell you of an event that has kind of come up of this now nearly 4-year series on national radio dynamic zones that started sort of as think tanks, right? To promote discussion around different components of NERDS. So this is going to be an in-person, by-invite event supported by the National Science Foundation, and the grant number is down there. The co-organizers, again, we've brought in a co-organizer community between, actively transmitting, considerably, commercial technologies, and some of the key scientific stakeholders. So Chris Dupree on the radio astronomy side, and Mustafa Aksoy representing the environmental sensing satellite-based community. And we're really looking to this time pull together the community at a site to demonstrate what the capabilities of one of these key stakeholders look like. So, in addition to us being there at the foot of the foliage and experiencing the great nature around the Green Bank telescope, we'll actually get to have behind-the-scenes tours of the facility that hopefully are going to help, really help you sink in with the ideas and the concepts behind one of those key stakeholders of the spectrum. In terms of what to look forward to with the agenda, we will have keynotes, again, from key stakeholders. We have Mike Nichols, who's VP of Engineering for Starlink, confirmed as one of our keynotes, and David DeBoer. I saw David here, right? Thank you kindly, who will be representing the radio astronomy community in their keynote. We have a couple of panels that, again, will bring in folks across the communities, focusing really on understanding or continuing to understand issues of trust in sharing spectrum, and pulling on, use cases that have really emphasized challenges, pulling on threads around data, collection, sharing, and what additional components to that data need to be embedded in order to, ease different stakeholders in sharing amongst each other, and thinking about what the test bed might actually look like. In addition to that, a lot of opportunity for informal discussion and connection, and as promised, really immersive experience with the Green Bank Observatory. Travel grants are available through NSF's kind support. We'll have organized excursion because it's a remote slot, and we'll help offset or fully pay your cost for participation if that's of any concern. We do have information there on a little table by the AV, and I have swag to start getting you prepared. So if you promise that you'll submit a little abstract to participate, you can grab one of those dongles. So part of what we will immerse with is really the radio quietness of the zone. What we will be required to, if you wanted to get online, is to really only use a cable. So our swag is appropriately themed, right? There will be no Wi-Fi, there will be no cellular. So here's the way to connect your laptop to a wire, in case we've all forgotten how to do that. Okay, I'm going to be around between here and the SpectrumX meeting. Chris and Chris Dupree, the Chris's are here. So we have, all right, the abstract, okay, Chris is tipping me here. The abstracts will feed into poster presentations. That's one way we will facilitate, you all showcasing your work. The abstract due date is in about 3 weeks, so you have some time to respond to this, but not a ton. And yeah, see us if you have any questions. This is the website with the fuller agenda, and folks who will be participating, and more instructions about how to submit an abstract. So thanks, and I look forward to today.